AITA for letting my materialistic wife leave and refusing to take her back? I am a 34-year-old man, and until last year, I was a senior IT project manager at one of those large tech companies in the Austin area where they push you hard but pay you enough to stay. I stayed there for almost 10 years. It was not the career I had dreamed of when I was younger. I wanted to start my own video game company, but this job paid $110,000 a year plus bonuses that my ex-wife Nicole, 32, made disappear almost immediately every month. We met 7 years ago at my friend Eric's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, gorgeous, confident, and loud in a way that made you want to impress her. At the time, she was working as a marketing consultant, mostly doing social media posts for local boutiques that barely covered her bills. I was making around $85,000 and had just bought my first condominium. Looking back, that is probably what attracted her more than anything else. The first 2 years were fine, not perfect, but okay. She often complained about her job, about how her degree in women's studies was not respected in the corporate world, and how systemic issues were keeping her from landing her dream position. Meanwhile, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. I took on extra projects and worked weekends to save up for the house she said was absolutely necessary in the right neighborhood. She had this way of making me feel like I was never doing enough. If I got a 5% raise, she would ask why it was not 8%. If I bought her flowers, she would tell me about a friend's husband who surprised his wife with weekend trips. Always comparing, always wanting more. We got married after 18 months of dating. Her parents paid for a small wedding, although I found out later that my $15,000 contribution covered the bulk of it while her parents took the credit. She was the one who insisted on a prenuptial agreement. Ironically, her parents had given her a trust fund of about $30,000 that would mature when she turned 35, and she wanted to protect it. Naive as I was, I agreed and even paid the lawyer to draft it. You see where this is going? The real problem started when I put her name on the mortgage for our $575,000 suburban home outside Austin. I put down a $110,000 down payment from selling my condominium and my savings. She did not contribute a single dollar, but she demanded that both our names be on everything. That is what marriage is, she would say. What is yours is mine. What is mine, she would joke with her friends. I should have seen the warning signs. Our house was just like her, demanding, expensive, and always needy. A few months after moving in, she decided the perfectly functional kitchen had to be remodeled for $40,000. 6 months later, it was the master bathroom, which she called outdated, for $25,000. I worked even harder, took on side consulting work, and pushed back vacations just to keep up with her vision of our life. My parents noticed I was changing. My dad pulled me aside during a rare visit. Nicole always had scheduling conflicts when I wanted to see my family. He asked if I was happy. I brushed off the question, saying I was just tired from work. But the truth was I was exhausted from walking on eggshells in my own home. Everything had to be done her way. The furniture, the vacations, even which friends we were allowed to see. My college friends were immature. My coworkers were just boring corporate types. My family lived too far away to bother with regular visits. Meanwhile, her friends were amazing, inspiring, ambitious women who deserved weekly dinners at expensive restaurants. Her family required regular visits and gifts. Her dreams deserved unconditional support, financial and otherwise. By the 3rd year, she quit her marketing job to find herself. This translated into a series of expensive hobbies and career projects that changed every few months. There was the pottery phase for $2,500 in supplies. The amateur photography business for $4,200 for the camera and lenses. The interior design course for $3,800 in fees. And finally, the wellness influencer brand that became her entire identity. Fast forward to last June. I had been promoted to senior project manager, leading a team of 12 people and a portfolio worth about $25 million for the company. More stress, more hours, but also a salary bumped up to $128,000 plus quarterly bonuses. Nicole, on the other hand, had already cycled through 4 different jobs, none lasting more than 8 months. At that point, she was in between opportunities, her 3rd stint of unemployment during our marriage, but had launched a wellness brand on social media with about 1,200 followers and barely $200 a month in affiliate commissions. Every morning, I woke up at 5:30 in the morning to squeeze in a quick workout before starting work at 7 in the morning. She slept until 9 or 10 in the morning, then spent hours on her phone interacting with her community or creating content, which mostly consisted of taking selfies with products she had convinced me to buy. While I ate quick desk lunches between back-to-back meetings, she posted elaborate meals with captions about nourishing her body and rejecting the toxic culture of overwork. My boss Mark invited the management team and their spouses to his lake house for the weekend, a beautiful property 2 hours from Austin. I had just been pushing myself at work on a major project at almost 80 hours a week for 3 months, and this weekend was supposed to be a celebration. Nicole complained the whole drive. The car was too small, our BMW 5 Series. It was too hot. My playlist was basic. I kept telling myself this weekend was important for my career. Be pleasant. Make a good impression. Do not let her ruin this. She suddenly changed her attitude when we arrived. Mark's house was impressive. Lakefront property, a dock, 5 bedrooms, high-end everything. Nicole immediately connected with Jennifer, Mark's wife, and their friend Caitlin, 29, the wife of another manager. Within an hour, they were talking like old friends, with Nicole casually dropping references to luxury brands and wellness retreats, as if that were our everyday life. I was going to get drinks for Nicole and Caitlin when I heard them talking on the patio. God, I do not know how you do it, Caitlin was saying. Brandon seems so focused on work. Nicole laughed, that condescending laugh I had grown to hate. This marriage feels confining sometimes, I swear. I cannot breathe with him constantly checking our accounts and questioning every expense. Caitlin lowered her voice. But he makes a good living. Yeah, but what is the point? He is so careful with money. You know, he actually suggested I get a real job last month instead of supporting my brand. Sorry, but I am not going to sell my soul to a corporate job like you, Brandon. She took on a mocking tone at the end, not realizing I was right behind her. He is so ordinary. My ex Jordan would have supported my dreams, but he is in San Francisco now. He is doing great with his startup. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had moved with him. I stood there, frozen, holding 2 sodas, while my wife of 5 years reduced our entire relationship to something she was enduring for financial security. 5 years of sacrificing everything, my free time, my health. I had gained 33 pounds from stress eating, my friendships, my dreams, just so she could laugh about it with someone she had known for barely 3 hours. The worst part is that it was not even the first time. 3 months earlier, she had made a similar remark during a brunch with her cousin. Marriage is like voluntarily putting yourself in a restricted situation, but with better food. She had laughed while I was sitting right next to her. 6 months before that, when I had suggested starting a family, she visibly cringed and replied, "Let us not add more complications to the situation, honey." I do not remember much after that. I somehow managed to get through the weekend smiling and pretending everything was fine. But inside, something had broken irreversibly. At that moment, standing on that lakeside patio with the sodas getting warm in my hands, I decided that if this marriage felt like a prison to her, then I would set her free. But she was going to learn that freedom comes with a price. On the drive back, Nicole complained about everything, from Jennifer bragging about her newly remodeled kitchen to the lake house sheets not having a high enough thread count to what she called the disappointment of me only getting a 3% raise when Mark mentioned others got 5%. "We really need to talk about your career path," she said, scrolling through her phone. Mark mentioned a director position opening up next year. That should be at least $170,000. That way we could finally redo the backyard. I was thinking of one of those natural swimming pools. I nodded and made the appropriate sounds while my mind raced. The prenuptial agreement she had demanded protected her future trust fund, but it also protected my retirement accounts and all the assets I brought into the marriage. What it did not cover was the rest, which in our community property state meant she would be entitled to half of our joint assets. But what if there were simply no more joint assets? On Monday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. While Nicole was at a networking brunch with her social media friends, charging $120 to our joint credit card, I made 2 important phone calls. First to Scott, my former college roommate turned divorce attorney, then to my bank. "Brandon, Manitoba, it has been a while." Scott's familiar voice brought me a slight comfort. We had drifted apart after my wedding. Nicole said he was a bad influence because he was single and loved his freedom. "I need your help, professionally." I explained the situation to him. There was a long silence. "I am sorry, man, but you came to the right person. Her prenup actually works in your favor. She cannot touch your 401k or the down payment you made on the house. But we are going to have to document everything carefully for the rest. Scott advised me to keep acting normally while gathering evidence. Do not confront her, do not change your behavior, and above all, do not move money in a suspicious way. Courts do not like that. That afternoon, I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I started gathering documents. Every contribution I had made to joint expenses, every major purchase, and especially every negative comment Nicole had posted about our marriage on social media. Screenshots of her suggestive messages with her ex Jordan, who seemed much more present in her digital life than I had imagined. Proof of the 4 designer bags she bought last month while telling me we needed to cut back on spending. For the next 6 weeks, I led a double life. On the surface, nothing changed. I kept working long hours, responding to her complaints with practiced patience, funding her brand collaborations that mysteriously always required new outfits and salon visits. But behind the scenes, I was executing my exit strategy with the same precision as in my project management job. Phase 1, financial separation. I had my next paycheck deposited into my new account, leaving just enough money in the joint account to avoid suspicion. I calculated exactly how much I contributed each month to the mortgage and household expenses, averaging $4,650, and continued to deposit precisely that amount. Phase 2, documenting her behavior. I installed a small recording device in our living room. Legal in Texas as long as one party is aware of the recording. It captured comments like her hour-long phone conversation with Caitlin about how choosing stability over passion was draining her, and how Brandon would not even know how to truly connect with a real woman emotionally. Phase 3, securing allies. I reconnected with friends she had pushed away, notably Eric, at whose wedding we had met, and his wife Stephanie. It turned out Nicole had tried to convince Stephanie that Eric was cheating on her last year. A strange move that backfired when Eric found out. They had been waiting a long time for me to see Nicole for who she really was. She told me you guys were having problems, Eric admitted during our first lunch in over a year. She said you were controlling and jealous, but that never fit with the image I had of you, man. Stephanie nodded. She tried to show me proof that Eric was cheating. A receipt from a jewelry store that was not for me. In reality, it was for his mother's birthday. Nicole looked disappointed when I told her, as if she wanted our marriage to fail too. The most serious piece of evidence came unexpectedly from Jennifer, Mark's wife. She forwarded me an email that Nicole had sent her by mistake instead of sending it to Caitlin, detailing her plan. Wait until I get the director promotion scheduled for next year, then file for divorce once his salary hits at least $175,000. The email also contained details about an account linked to a side activity I knew absolutely nothing about, as well as her exchanges with a lawyer specializing in optimizing settlements for women in difficult financial situations. I forwarded everything to Scott. His response was immediate. This is better than anything we could have hoped for. She is in a tough spot. During those weeks of gathering evidence, I also discovered that Nicole was lying about her activities almost daily. Her networking lunches were actually shopping trips. Her professional conference in San Diego had mysteriously taken place at the same hotel where her ex Jordan was a guest speaker. She had even borrowed $3,000 from our emergency fund for a medical procedure that turned out to be cosmetic treatments. The final blow was discovering credit card statements showing she was making regular payments on a separate card I had never heard of. Over $12,000 in debt racked up in just 8 months, mostly on clothes, spa treatments, and weekend trips I was never invited to. I felt like I was living with a stranger who had been taking advantage of the situation all along. The golden opportunity arrived when Nicole announced she had been invited to an exclusive influencer retreat in Sedona. All expenses paid, provided she promoted the resort. She only needed $1,500 for incidental expenses. I agreed immediately, surprising her with my enthusiasm for this professional opportunity. Really? You are not going to make a scene about this? She asked suspiciously. Not at all, I smiled. Your brand is growing. This could be a great opportunity. She narrowed her eyes for a moment, then flashed a wide smile. Well, finally you are starting to understand how this influencer thing works. Investments now lead to big returns later. The irony was almost unbearable. As soon as her plane took off, the real work began. I took a week off, my first real vacation in 3 years. In 48 hours, with the help of Eric, Scott, and 2 movers paid in cash, I had moved all my personal belongings into a storage unit, inventoried and photographed every item in the house with receipts, installed cameras with highly visible warning stickers, perfectly legal at the entrances, changed the passwords to all our joint credit cards, met with Mark to explain my situation and get his support for what was coming. I had a feeling something was wrong, Mark said after seeing some of the evidence. Jennifer mentioned Nicole was asking odd questions about our finances and my compensation package. Now I understand why. More importantly, I had bank documents showing Nicole was transferring between $750 and $1,200 a month to a private account for the last 18 months, money coming directly from my deposits since she was not contributing anything. By my calculations, she had moved over $19,000 while claiming to need more for household expenses. The day before Nicole's return, Scott filed the divorce papers. We also submitted an emergency motion regarding financial concerns, requesting a freeze on all joint assets pending the investigation. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, granted the motion within hours. I did not go home. Instead, I checked into a hotel and waited. Scott had advised me to be nowhere near the house when she returned for legal and personal safety reasons. People can react strongly when they are cornered, he had warned me. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without anxiety or waking up in a cold sweat over money. I felt like I had put down a 50-pound backpack I did not even know I was carrying. Nicole's first call came at 8:47 in the evening, shortly after her flight landed. "Brandon, why is there a notice on our door, and why is not my key working?" "Check your emails," I replied calmly. "What? I just got off the plane. What is going on?" "Check your emails." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone blew up. Calls, texts, voicemails, each more upset than the last. I let them all go to voicemail. Scott had been very clear, no direct communication, only in writing through the lawyers. From these increasingly incoherent messages, I pieced together the scene. She had come home to find the locks changed legally since I had filed the emergency order and an official notice of divorce proceedings taped to the door. Checking her emails, she discovered not only the divorce filing, but also the temporary freeze on all our joint accounts, including the credit card she intended to use for a lift and a hotel. A few select quotes from those messages. "You cannot lock me out of my own house. That is illegal. Answer your phone, you coward. What am I supposed to do now? All my stuff is in there. You are going to regret this. I have lawyer friends too. This is financial pressure. I am calling the police." At 11:23 in the evening, she sent a message that simply read, "You are out of line. You will not get away with this." I forwarded it to Scott with the caption, "Exhibit concerning behavior." The next morning, Eric called me. "Man, Nicole is spiraling. She is calling everyone saying you had a breakdown, emptied the accounts, and abandoned her. She even called Mark, claiming you were mishandling money at the company to fund a gambling issue." I laughed for the first time in what felt like years. Mark already knows everything. He is the one who helped me document her hidden account. "She showed up at our place at midnight," Eric continued. "Stephanie did not want to let her in, but she was crying in our driveway loud enough to wake the neighbors. She spent 2 hours criticizing you, then asked to borrow $2,000 for a lawyer. Did you give it to her?" "No way. We offered her the couch for the night, nothing more. She left this morning, furious that we would not take her side." Similar stories reach me from other friends and co-workers. Nicole was trying her hardest to portray herself as the victim of a sudden, incomprehensible situation. She had even called my parents, telling them I had changed recently, become controlling and paranoid, and suggesting I might need professional help. Fortunately, I had already explained the situation to my parents. My dad's response was typically him. "It is about time, son. That woman has been draining you for years." The real turning point happened 3 days later at the emergency hearing. Nicole showed up with a tough divorce lawyer, a woman known for aggressive cases. They were ready for conflict, with statements about my controlling behavior, alleged financial pressure, and abandonment. Nicole had clearly been coached. Gone were the designer outfits and heavy makeup. She wore a modest dress, subtle makeup, and her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. The picture-perfect wronged spouse. What she was not expecting was Scott's methodical presentation. Bank statements showing her secret account. Time-stamped recordings where she criticized our marriage. screenshots of her suggestive messages with her ex, the email sent to Caitlin detailing her plan after my promotion, sworn statements from Mark, Jennifer, Eric, and Stephanie regarding her behavior, credit card statements proving her extravagant spending while unemployed, proof that she had consulted 3 divorce lawyers while I was working late at night. The judge, who seemed neutral at first, took off her glasses halfway through Scott's argument. "Ms. Reynolds," she said, looking Nicole straight in the eye, "are you familiar with the term planning a divorce while still benefiting from the marriage? It is when a person secretly prepares their departure while continuing to benefit and deliberately increasing their spouse's financial obligations." Nicole's lawyer tried to intervene, but the judge cut her off sharply. "The court takes a very dim view of this type of behavior. A very dim view." Nicole tried to defend herself through tears, feigning confusion. "I was scared. I was just looking at my options. I never really intended to go through with it. Brandon has always been careful with money. I had to protect myself." The judge then cited specific exhibits. "Your messages to your friend Caitlin indicate," and I quote, "2 more years until his director promotion. Then I can file and take half of everything plus monthly support. His income should be approaching $180,000. That does not sound like someone who had no intention of going through with it." At the end of the hearing, the judge upheld the freeze on all joint accounts, ordered Nicole to provide a full statement of her separate account, granted me exclusive use of the house until the next hearing, and required Nicole to pay her own attorney's fees from her personal funds. Leaving the courtroom, I finally looked Nicole straight in the eye. Her flawless makeup could not hide her shock and anger. She tried to approach me, but Scott stepped in. "Save it for your lawyer," he said. In the hallway, she managed to catch up to me while Scott was talking to the clerk. "Brandon, this is crazy," she hissed, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. "You know all of this was taken out of context. We can still work things out if you call off the lawyers right now. The time to work things out was before you started planning to take advantage financially," I replied calmly. "It is all in writing, Nicole. Your own words." Her expression changed. The mask of wounded innocence dropped, revealing the calculating woman I had lived with. "You think you have won, but you have no idea what I am capable of. I made you. I can destroy you just as easily." I simply smiled. "You should be careful with threats. We are still in a courthouse." Her lawyer then pulled her aside, whispering something to her urgently. The look Nicole gave me before leaving was full of pure anger. I should have been afraid. Instead, I felt nothing but immense relief. The doors were finally swinging open. News travels fast in social circles. Within days, 2 distinct narratives emerged. Nicole claimed I had suffered some sort of breakdown, possibly related to work stress, and had cruelly locked her out while she was on a business trip. My version, backed by evidence that she was planning a favorable divorce while secretly reconnecting with an ex, began to gain traction as the details came out. The most surprising ally was Caitlin, who seemed to have her own regrets about encouraging Nicole. She forwarded me dozens of messages showing how Nicole bragged about manipulating me, with comments like, "Brandon just bought a new Peloton for both of us, like I would let him use my bike." Laughing out loud, "Just told Brandon my car broke down and I need $900 for repairs. Hello, new appointment. The secret is making them think your spending benefits them somehow. I told Brandon those $300 sheets would improve our connection." Guess which part of that sentence was a lie? Caitlin's conscience had apparently gotten the better of her after seeing Nicole's true colors. "I am recently married myself," she explained when we met for coffee. "The way she talked about you, about marriage in general, really started bothering me. What if my husband had someone like Nicole whispering negative things about me?" These texts and emails provided further proof that Nicole had been taking advantage for years. Not just about money, but everything, including multiple girls' weekends that turned out to be private meetings with her ex Jordan. 2 weeks after the initial hearing, Nicole's lawyer requested a settlement conference. Her tough facade had cracked when she realized 3 key facts. First, the prenup she had demanded protected my retirement accounts and the initial down payment I made on the house, plus the appreciation. Second, her documented financial misconduct and planning had destroyed any chance of support. Third, even though most of our joint assets were theoretically divisible, given her behavior, the judge was unlikely to order a 50-50 split. The settlement offer was almost insultingly weak. She would keep her separate account, which now held about $23,000, Her car completely paid off by me, and her personal belongings. No support, no share of the house, no future financial help. Scott advised me to accept it, explaining that it was actually generous under the circumstances. The judge might order her to pay back the moved funds on top of your legal fees. This way we let her walk away with something. I accepted the terms with one addition. Nicole had to sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing her from publicly criticizing me, including on social media. Her brand would have to find content elsewhere. The divorce was finalized in record time. I sold the house for a $110,000 profit, bought a smaller place closer to work, and took a month off to finally recover from years of stress. The transformation was remarkable. Without Nicole's constant criticism and ever-growing demands, I started to remember who I was before the marriage. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and even started casually dating again. Nothing serious, just getting back to a healthy relationship with myself. I lost the stress weight, 35 pounds in 6 months. Thanks to regular exercise and no longer eating my emotions with every new crisis Nicole created, I started therapy to understand why I had let myself be used for so long. Above all, I rebuilt my relationship with my family, visiting them without the emergencies orchestrated by Nicole that strangely always popped up right before our planned trips. "You are yourself again," my mom told me during my first visit after the divorce. "We missed this version of you." Fast forward 14 months. I had been promoted to director of special projects. $172,000 base salary, plus up to 30% bonus. I had lost the stress weight plus another 15 pounds, and I was quietly dating women, mostly accomplished professionals who had their own money and ambitions. The company had sent me to our London office for a 6-month leadership exchange, with a generous housing allowance and travel budget. Nicole's wellness brand had apparently collapsed after several companies dropped her following a live stream where she rambled about women who settle for average men. According to mutual acquaintances, she had moved back in with her parents in Ohio and was working as an assistant manager at a mall boutique. I had almost completely forgotten about her when the message arrived. "Brandon, I know it has been a long time. I have done a lot of reflecting and growing. I realize now how much I took for granted. Can we talk just for closure?" I ignored it. 3 days later, another message. "I heard about your promotion and your transfer to London. I am really happy for you. You were always destined for great things." Then a week later, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. "I am really struggling right now and could use a friendly voice. Please." Against my better judgment, I replied, "Sorry about your mom. I hope she gets good care." That tiny response opened the floodgates. Nicole called within minutes. Against Scott's explicit advice, I answered, "Brandon, thank you for picking up. It is so good to hear your voice." She sounded exactly the same, that breathless excitement that used to make me feel special, but now only triggered warning bells. "What do you want, Nicole?" "Want? Can I not just check in on my ex-husband?" She laughed nervously. "But since you ask, I am in a bit of a situation." Of course, her parents had apparently lost a significant amount of money in a bad investment. Her mother's cancer treatments were not fully covered by insurance. The trust fund she had so desperately wanted to protect in our prenup was almost entirely depleted, used to cover her parents' debts. She was making $16.50 an hour at the boutique with no benefits. Her car needed major repairs. "I know we did not end on good terms," she said, adopting that soft tone she used to use when asking for expensive gifts. "But I always knew you were a good man, Brandon, the best I have ever known, honestly. What exactly are you asking me for?" She paused. "Well, I would need about $35,000 for my mom's treatments and to get back on my feet. I could pay you back when I get a better job, or we could discuss other arrangements." The audacity was almost impressive. "Other arrangements?" Her voice dropped to a suggestive whisper. "I am still in a good place in life, and I know you always said I was the most beautiful woman you had ever been with. We could reconnect. I could even come live in London for a while, help you get settled, just like old times." I burst out laughing. I could not help it. The woman who had called our marriage confining, who had planned to end things for maximum financial gain, who had criticized me to her friends and moved our money, was now essentially offering to become part of my life again. "Nicole, let me be very clear. There will be no money, no reunion, no arrangement. The only reason I answered is that I am doing well enough today to not hold resentment anymore. I feel nothing." "And what about my mom?" I am truly sorry about your mom, but those medical bills are not my problem. You made sure we were no longer a family. Remember? You should reach out to Jordan in San Francisco. I heard he is doing great with his startup." She gasped. "That was private." "Nothing was private, Nicole. That is what you never understood. In a real partnership, there are no secrets. But we never had a real partnership, did we? You had a business arrangement with a walking paycheck." I could hear her crying now, probably real tears for once, since her plans were not working anymore. "Brandon, please, I am desperate. I have nowhere else to go. Everyone has abandoned me." For a brief moment, I felt that old protective instinct flare up. Then I remembered all those nights working late while she spent my money. All those times she belittled me in front of her friends. The calculated plan to maximize what she could take from me. This is what happens when you treat people like resources to be used, Nicole. Eventually the resources run out. I advise you to start building something real with what you have left. You jerk. Her voice instantly went from pleading to venomous. After everything I put up with, the lack of passion, the long hours, your constant need for validation, you owe me something. I settled all my debts in the divorce, Nicole. Goodbye. I blocked her number and sent an email to Scott to document the contact in case she tried anything else. 2 days later, Eric called me. "Man, you will not believe this. Nicole is calling everyone asking for money or a place to stay." She even reached out to Mark, claiming she had information about irregularities at the company that might interest him. And what did Mark say? He recorded the call and sent it to his lawyer. I am pretty sure that violates her non-disclosure agreement. She could face penalties if you want to pursue it. I thought about it. A part of me wanted to make her face consequences the way I had suffered emotionally. But the truth is, freedom away from Nicole was worth more than any payback. Tell Mark I appreciate the heads up, but she is not worth the effort. I had a life to live, and I was living it. A life that had become infinitely better since I walked away from someone who only saw me as a resource to exploit. My new partner, Natalie, a pediatric surgeon I met at a charity event, had none of Nicole's entitlement or focus on material things. We were planning a hiking trip through Scotland during my next break from the London office. The irony of Nicole's situation was not lost on me. She had spent years cultivating an image of success and fulfillment on social media, portraying our marriage as perfect when it served her brand, and painting me as the problem when talking to her friends. Now she was stuck in retail work, living with her parents at 32, watching from afar as I thrived without her. My therapist suggested that Nicole's attempt to reach out was not really about money but control. She could not stand that I had moved on and was doing well. Success is the best response, but having her witness that success and want back and felt like the sweetest outcome of all. That night, as Natalie and I were video chatting about our upcoming plans, I realized something profound. The prison had never been the marriage itself. The prison was letting someone convince me I was worthless beyond what I could provide financially. By setting us both free, I discovered what true freedom meant. The freedom to be appreciated for who I am, not what I earn. The freedom to be with someone who sees partnership as something equal and supportive. The freedom to know my own worth. As for Nicole, last I heard, she had started a GoFundMe for her mother's medical bills. She had raised $250 in 3 weeks, mostly from distant relatives. The page featured a long, emotional story about being abandoned in her time of need by those who had promised to love her in sickness and in health. Apparently even defeated, she could not stop herself from rewriting history. But that was no longer my problem. I had served my time. There was no going back. Comment. Hey friends, this story really made me stop and think. I hope it reminds you how important it is to value yourself first. Never stay in a situation that slowly breaks your spirit. Setting healthy boundaries is an act of self-respect. Your worth is not defined by how much you can give financially or emotionally. It is okay to choose yourself and start over when needed. True healing happens when you surround yourself with genuine support. I believe we all deserve relationships built on mutual respect and kindness. Take a moment today to reflect on what real peace looks like for you. You are worthy of a life that feels light and fulfilling. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.